Hey, all right, boys and girls, this is actually a throwback to lesson 2.2, which was adding rational numbers. And if you'll recall, rational numbers are numbers that can be fractions or decimals. It does still include whole numbers, integers, and natural numbers, but it now includes fractions and decimals. So when we talk rational numbers, usually we're talking about that inclusion of decimals and fractions. So you really have to think back to, wow, I don't even know, 4th grade when we learned how to add fractions. So let's look at number 4 here. A quick little review. Now number 4 is nice for us because common denominator already. But what makes this a 7th grade problem is the fact that this rational number is a negative, and this rational number is a positive. So we've got a couple of rules here. First, we have 11 twelfths plus a negative 7 twelfths. So we're good because they've got the common denominator already, but we do have to remember different signs means we subtract the numbers and take the sign of the larger absolute value. So first we'll subtract. So we have 11 twelfths and 7 twelfths. And if we subtract those, we get 4 twelfths. Still a common denominator right through to the answer, but it is 4 twelfths. And then the positive 11 12 is bigger than 7 twelfths. So we take the positive sign. So we leave it positive. Now it does say write fractions in simplest form, and this can be simplified because 4 goes into both 4 and 12, simplifying this to 1/3. Number 5, let's see if I got room to do number 5 right over here. Number 5, negative 1 1/5, negative 1 1/5 plus negative 3/5. Now these parentheses, remember, are there just so we don't have a plus and a negative right next to each other confusing people. And they're both negative, so that's good. Remember, same sign, so we're going to add and keep. But I have a mixed number and a fraction. Now normally I would say turn this mixed number into an improper fraction, and you could do that. But I could add these as is because 1/5 and 3/5, I put those together, I get 4/5, which is still cool. It's not an improper fraction. And don't forget to carry that 1 along, though. It's the most important part. So negative 1 1/5 plus negative 3/5 equals negative, because we keep the sign, same sign, add and keep the sign, 1 4/5. Number 6. Well, number 6, we leave fractions for a moment here and we go back to decimals. And remember, when we're adding and subtracting decimals, I'm going to put these vertical instead of horizontal, how they have them. Negative 4 2/10 or 4.2 plus 3 3/10 or 3.3. We have to line up the decimals. Now these just naturally lined up because they both go to the tenths place, but we'll get to some where they don't naturally line up, and we have to make sure that we line them up anyway. Now, I've got a negative and a positive. So different signs, subtract. So when I subtract these, I put the larger absolute value on top. Now this one just happened to be on top, so that worked out well for us. I have 2 minus 3. I don't put a 1 there because 2 minus 3 is not 1. I have to borrow here. 12 minus 3 is 9. I bring down the decimal. 3 minus 3 is 0. And now I keep the sign of the larger absolute value. My negative, 4.2, was at a bigger absolute value than my 3.3 positive. So I keep this negative. Number 7. Back to fractions now. And it's not common denominator, so we'll have to fix that. First, we'll start off with negative 9/14 plus positive 2/7. And we'll take care of that not common denominator. What's a number I could turn 14 and 7 both into? 14, of course. For this one, it already had a denominator of 14, so this fraction stays the same, negative 9/14. However, here I multiplied the 7 by 2 to get 14, so I have to multiply the top by 2 to get 4. Well, now I can finish this problem. A negative plus a positive, so different sign, so I subtract, getting 5/14, and I keep the sign of whichever one had a larger number part, and that would be the 9/14, so it gets to keep its negative. Negative 5/14. Moving on to number 8. I have 4, which I'm going to write as 4 over 1, because remember, to turn a whole number or an integer into a fraction, you just put it over a denominator of 1, plus negative 1 2/3. Well, here's a time when I have to turn this into an improper fraction, which would make this 4 over 1 plus a negative 3/45 over 3. Okay, well now they're both fractions, but not common denominators yet. So let's think, what can I turn 1 and 3 both into? 3, of course. This fraction gets to stay the same because it already had a denominator of 3. Here I had to multiply 1 by 3 to get 3, so I multiply the top by 3 to get 12. Okay, now I can finally do this problem. Different signs, so I'm going to subtract, and 12/3 minus 5/3 equals 7/3. Whoa, I had to think about it for a second there. And my positive had the larger absolute value, so it stays positive. So I have 7/3 for an answer. Now, because this problem started off with a mixed number, I'm guessing they want their answer back in a mixed number. So we'll turn this back into a mixed number. 3 goes into 7 2 times with 1 left over. So 2 1/3. If you leave it as 7/3, I would count that as correct as well. Number 9. Fifteen fourths. Wow, that was tough for me. And a negative 4 1/3. Turning this into an improper fraction, I have 15 over 4 still. And here I'll have a negative 3 times 4 is 12 plus 1 is 13 over 3 still. Well, I don't have a common denominator. 4 and 3 can both be turned into 12 easily. I have to multiply 4 by 3 to get 12. 15 times 3 gives me 45 for the numerator here. This will stay negative over here. 3 times 4 is how I got 12. 13 times 4 is 52. Okay, so now I have 45/12 plus a negative 52/12. Different sign, so I subtract. I'm going to keep the sign of the negative because there are more negatives. And 52 take away 45 is 7. So it'll be negative 7/12, which cannot be simplified. Number 10, back to the decimals. But when we got to this one, we're going to have to be careful here. So they're both negatives, so I know I'm just going to add these and keep them negative because we're adding same sign, add and keep. So I have negative 3.1 plus a negative 0.35. So see how I lined up the decimals? I'm going to annex a 0 here. It's not needed, but it does make things just look nicer, and it's tougher for me to get them wrong this way. Same sign, so I'm adding and keeping the sign. It's going to be negative. 0 plus 5 is 5. 1 plus 3 is 4. Bring down my decimal. 3 plus 0 is 3. Negative 3 45/100. Number 11. I have 12.48 plus a negative, so plus a negative 10.636. So different signs. I have a positive and a negative. So I'm going to have to subtract. And I'm going to have to keep the sign of the larger number, larger absolute value, which will be the 12.48. So my answer is going to be positive. And I should annex a 0 here. All right, now we can subtract. So I needed that 0 so I could borrow and do this problem. 10 minus 6 is 4. 7 take away 3 is 4. 4 take away is 2. You can't do it. Borrow. 14 take away 6 is 8. Bring down the decimal. 1 minus 0 is 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. So I could put the 0. It's not needed out front. My answer is positive because my larger absolute value is positive. 1 844 thousandths, or 1.844. Number 12. I have different signs, so I'm going to be subtracting. We'll start with, we put the larger absolute value on top, which happened to work out on all of these actually for us, plus a negative 15.711. I need to annex a 0 one more time here. Different sign, so I'm subtracting. Have to do some borrowing. 10 minus 1 is 9. 4 take away 1 is 3. I can't do this, so I have to borrow, but I can't borrow from next door because it's a 0. So I have to borrow here. Borrow from the 2 to make it a 1 and make this a 10. Now I can go here and borrow from the 10, make that a 9, make that a 12. 12 take away 7 is 5. Bring the decimal down. 9 take away 5 is 4. 1 take away 1 is 0. And my answer is positive because my larger absolute value is the positive number. So my answer is 4 539 thousandths, or 4.539. Excellent. Do head over, and you don't have to print off, and I know you don't have this page anymore, but watch the video for journal page 32, which is a throwback to way back at the beginning of the year. But journal page 32, watch the video. Make sure you're writing the answers down as I get them because I'm going to grab some of those for your questions. See ya.